Hello, today we're going to be working on our poetry unit, lesson 3, my first memory of librarians. Our learning goals today are: I can find different points of view, then apply my knowledge while closely reading Giovanni's poem, paying particular attention to textual detail, and I can record information about one of my own experiences and plan a memory poem that includes sensory detail and rich description. So our first vocabulary word today is anticipation. Excitement about something before it happens. So you might have a lot of anticipation for recess or lunch or Christmas. Banker's lights. So they look like this green lamp right here in the picture. They're desk lamps used by bankers. Their green shades were believed to help deflect bright light and reduce strain on the eyes, which was an important thing for people who spent their day poring over complex numbers. So a lot of bankers would have lights like this, so they called them banker's lights. A card catalog. This is the filing system used by librarians before computers. So the card catalog was a collection of cards that told visitors what books the library had and where to locate them. So you could go through these cards and it would tell you, okay, that's going to be on this shelf in the library. Okay, a foyer is an entryway, often leading into another room. So it's like you come in the front door and this picture, this is the foyer. So from there, you could go into all these different rooms. It's kind of just the entry to a home or a building, and it's usually a little bit fancier places, right? Preside. That means to rule over or be in charge of. So you could say, Miss Platt presides over the classroom, okay? A quilt rack. Okay, so it looks like these examples here, and it's used for hanging quilts and blankets once they're folded. So they kind of fold over there and it stores them and they look kind of nice. Content. That's the message of a poem or other text, okay? So it's what's in the message. Form. That's the structure or appearance of a poem or other text. So I have some examples down there that are shape poems, and the form is a little different, right? That one looks like kind of a tornado, one looks like a star. So in poetry, you kind of get to change the rules on writing. It's not like writing an essay where it has to be in a certain format. The form in poems gets to change quite a bit. Free verse is a type of poem with no rhyme scheme or set pattern of beats. So this example right here by someone named Sabrina called Spring says, spring is the time when flowers bloom, when the busy bees buzz. Okay? We are going to be looking at 3.1 today, so you can go ahead and flip on over to that with me. So today we're going to talk about different ways to describe events, okay? The two most common points of view in poetry are first-person point of view and third-person point of view. So we're going to just read through this here. Follow along with me, please. There are many ways to write a poem, and poets have to make choices about the way they want their poems to look and sound. They have to make decisions about content, which is the poem's message, and form, which is the poem's structure or appearance, the way it looks. When considering a poem's form, poets have to decide how many stanzas or groups of lines the poem will have, how many lines each stanza will have, whether or not the poem will include a rhyme scheme. Then when considering the poem's content, poets have to decide what will their poem will be about. What's the subject or the content? What message do they want to present about their subject? So for example, they might want to describe their subject or make a claim about it or tell a story about it. The poems we are reading in this unit all tell stories about a subject. So they also need to figure out what angle or perspective they want to take on their subject or whom the poem's narrator will be. So that's the point of view. Okay? So first-person point of view is used when speakers or narrators describe stories or events that include them as characters. It often includes words such as I, me, my, we, or us. You'll remember we used first person a lot in our personal narrative unit because we talked about ourselves, right? So we were the person telling the story, so we used a lot of those words. It was first person. So for example, a student named Lauren might say, "One time I dreamed I could fly." This would be first person since Lauren is talking about her own experience. Lauren is a character in the sentence she narrates, so it is first person. Third person point of view is used when the speakers or narrators describe stories or events that do not include them as characters. So like some of us have written our historical fiction about a made-up character, so we are not doing first person there. That would be third person, okay? So it often uses words such as he did this, or she did that, or it was like this, or they did that, okay? So for example, Lauren's classmate Jose might describe Lauren's dream. Once, Lauren dreamed she could fly. This would be third person since Jose is talking about someone else's experience. Jose is not a character in the sentence he narrates, so it's third person. Here's an example of how Jose might make his sentence first person. He could say, "Lauren told me that once she dreamed she could fly." So now he's making himself part of the story, so it is first person. So this sentence is in first person since Jose is a character describing an event from his perspective. I want you to take a look at these little notes for student. So the first one said, "Did you know not all poems rhyme? If a poem does not rhyme or have a set pattern of beats, it's usually called a free verse poem." And then the other note to students says, "First person point of view is used when narrators describe stories or events from their perspective. It often includes words such as I, me, my, we, or us." So now go ahead and turn in your journal to 3.2. The distinction between the kind of dream one has while sleeping and the kind of dream to which one aspires often challenge us. So we're going to talk a little bit about it to make more sense for you. So the type of dream we have when we're sleeping is like you fall asleep, you might have a nightmare, you might have a good dream. But then you could also have a dream when you're awake, which is more like, one day I dream I could do this, or a dream I have is that I'm going to become a famous athlete, right? Okay, so that'll help us with some of these questions. Okay, so 3.2. Now that you understand the difference between first and third person, practice applying that knowledge. On the line following each of the sentences below, write whether it uses first or third person. So number 1. Emily dreamed of going on a trip to India with her uncle. Is that first or third person? Okay, so you could put a 1 or a 3 on it if you want to do it like that. That's fine. Number 2. I dreamed about riding a racehorse. Make sure you're looking for those clues, what kind of words they use in first person and what kind of words they use in third. Okay, I dreamed about riding a racehorse. Number 3. My little brother dreamed of being president after he went to Washington, D.C. Number 4. Austin had a dream about being a Major League Baseball player. Number 5. Sophia's mother had dreamed for years about opening a restaurant. Number 6. In the dream, the friendly dragon offered to let us ride on his back. Number 7. After hearing the astronauts speak, our class dreamed of going to Mars someday. Number 8. Write a first-person sentence about a dream you have had while sleeping. Number 9. Write a first-person sentence about something you dream of doing or becoming. Number 10. Write a third-person sentence about one of your partner's dreams. So after you finish number 9, what I want you to do is you're going to share your answer to number 9 with your partner, and they're going to write about that for 10. And then they're going to tell you about their dream, and you're going to write about it for 10. Okay? So when you write your answer for number 10, tell me who your partner is. Okay? So what differences are there between first and third person point of view? There can be different answers, but hopefully you notice that first person point of view, the speaker or the narrator, they're describing things that they were involved in. They saw it. They were there firsthand, okay? It happened to them. Now, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the poem, which it's fun, and we get to do something pretty fun afterwards. It's called My First Memory of Librarians by Nikki Giovanni. So Nikki Giovanni, if you turn to page 43, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Yolanda Cornelia, aka Nikki Giovanni, was born on June 7th, 1943, in Knoxville, Tennessee. She grew up in an all-black suburb of Cincinnati, Ohio, but spent summers visiting her grandparents in Knoxville. She loved hearing her grandmother's stories about her ancestors, which greatly influenced her own love for writing. She explained in an interview, "I come from a long line of storytellers." Giovanni self-published her book of poetry, Black Feeling, Black Talk, in 1968. She has since published over 24 books, including Rosa and Hip Hop Speaks to Children, and won many awards. She prides herself on being a Black American, a daughter, a mother, a professor of English. Her distinct and imaginative poetry is inspired by her fascination with people and their emotions. It is also influenced by music and her passion for social equality. She is currently a professor of English and Black Studies at Virginia Tech, so that's a university. I want to go back and talk about a couple things that is said in here. So self-published, where it says Giovanni self-published her book of poetry, that means she paid to get it published. So usually what you'll do is you'll try to get a publisher, which means it's a company that comes in, they'll pay for everything, and then you get part of the money, they get part of the money afterwards when it sells. So self-publishing means she did that all herself. So she paid for all of it, and then whatever sold, she got all the money from, which is pretty cool. And then when it said that she has a passion for social equality, that means she thinks everyone should have equal rights. So doesn't matter your ethnicity. So if you're African American, if you're Hispanic, if you're white, whatever you are, she believes that you should have equal rights. So that's pretty cool. And then there's a reminder on the page before, just to remind you that the back of your Poets Journal has a glossary where you can find definitions of a lot of these words. Okay, so since the title does reveal that this poem is about a memory, it might be useful just to know a little bit about her, because this is a true story about her. Okay, so now that you know about her, I want you to keep that in mind as we listen to and read this poem. So go ahead and turn to page 32 and 33 for My First Memory of Librarians by Nikki Giovanni. This is my first memory. A big room with heavy wooden tables that sat on a creaky wood floor. A line of green shades, banker's lights, down the center. Heavy oak chairs that were too low, or maybe I was simply too short, for me to sit in and read. So my first book was always big. In the foyer up the 4 steps, a semicircle desk presided. To the left side, the card catalog. On the right, newspapers draped over what looked like a quilt rack. Magazines face out from the wall. The welcoming smile of my librarian. The anticipation in my heart. All those books, another world, just waiting at my fingertips. Hopefully you were able to picture that. I would have you should go back and replay the reading of that poem and just listen and try to picture it in your head. Paint that picture in your mind of what that looked like for her. Okay, then we're going to go to 3.3. So after reading, we're going to answer the following questions about Giovanni's poem. So consult, which means to go back and look at, consult the poem for words and details that can help you develop your answers. Number 1, is this poem in first or third person? Underline the word or words in the poem that make this clear. So go back to the poem and underline all the words that tell you if it was in first or third person. So remember, it said on 3.1 that first person uses words like I, me, my, we, and us. So all of those type of words, go through and underline them. Then number 2, based on the title of the poem, what is the narrator describing? Put the answer in your own words. Okay? So the title of the poem is My First Memory of Librarians. So what are they describing? Give me a complete sentence here. Number 3, the narrator lists 2 reasons the chairs might not have fit her very well. Name both of those reasons. So she talks about a chair that doesn't fit her very well, and it's in the poem on the first stanza right in the middle. So I'm going to read that again real quick. It says, heavy oak chairs that were too low, or maybe I was simply too short. Okay, so why might the chairs be too big for her? Then number 4, the narrator describes the librarian as having a welcoming smile. Based on these words, how do you think the narrator felt about seeing the librarian? Give a reason for your answer. Okay, why would welcoming smile, how would that make her feel, and why do you think that? Number 5, in the final stanza, the narrator says she felt anticipation about visiting the library. Using the third person, write a sentence that describes in your own words how the narrator felt when she was at the library. So remember what anticipation means. If you don't, look it back up. Number 6, when you read Nikki Giovanni's biography, you were asked to think about how she might have felt about libraries and librarians when she was younger. When she was younger. Based on your answers to question 4 and 5, does the poem show Giovanni feeling the way you expected? Explain your answer. Okay, so you answered about her feelings on 4 and 5. So with that and with reading the poem, how do you think she felt about libraries and librarians? Did she love them? Did she hate them? Did they make her scared, nervous, excited, happy? So how did she feel, and explain why you think that. And then number 7, in the next to last line of the poem, the speaker calls the library's books another world. How can books be like another world? So I want you to think about that one. How is a book kind of like another world? Now I want you to think of your favorite place, somewhere you really like being. And I want you to close your eyes and just picture it for a minute. Just listen to me, but close your eyes and just think of your favorite place. Think about what it looks like. What do you see there? Look around in your mind. What kind of stuff is there? What smells are you smelling? Are you hearing any sounds? Do you feel anything? Is it hot, cold, windy? Do you hear birds? Do you hear people talking? Do you hear cars? As many details as you can. And you're going to need them for the next lesson that we do. Okay, so on the next one, 3.4, you're going to use the details of the poem that we read to show what the library looked like to our poet. So now that you've read and thought about Nikki Giovanni's poem, it's time to imagine what her library looked like. To do that, you will think about all the details in the poem, then draw them in the space on the next page. Look back at the poem and underline the words that help describe what the library looked like, okay? So go back to the poem and I want you to underline or highlight all the words that describe what it looks like, just the descriptive words of what it looks like. Okay, now that you did that, for each item that you underlined or highlighted, I want you to think about how to draw that. So use the details that she gave in the poem. For example, does Giovanni remember that some objects were big? Does she tell you the shape of the furniture? Think about how these details can help you imagine what the room looked like. Now for 3, take one description and draw it in the space below, well, in the box. Make sure to think about where in the space it should be located. So think about when she comes into the library, what does she see first? And then as she starts walking deeper into it, what does she see? Number 4, as you draw each thing, label it with a word from the poem that helped you imagine how to draw it. So like if she said it had a really tall glass window, then you would draw the window and label tall glass window. Okay? It doesn't say that, but for anything that she mentions in there, draw it and label it with words. Okay? Then keep adding objects to your library until it looks like the one in the poem. If you feel stuck while you work, make sure to consult the poem. That means go back and read the poem again, as it will help you know where to put each image. So if you finish with time remaining, reread the poem and look for one more detail that you could draw in your library that you might have missed. Okay, next is the fun part. All right, so today's lesson included Nikki Giovanni's poem, My First Memory of Librarians, which is a poem in which the narrator remembers an event from her childhood, and she describes it with lots of details. So in this exercise, you'll think about a memory of your own, then answer some questions. If you don't finish during class time, you can take it home to finish, okay? So don't worry. But number 1, think about your favorite place. It might be a place where you go often, or it could be a place you've only been once, but something that you really liked, okay? When you have thought of that place and remember visiting it, write down the name of the place below. So make sure it's a place you can remember really well. Then number 2, think about what you did in this place. Did you talk to anyone? Did you move around? Did you do anything, touch anything, leave anything there, or take anything when you left? So using the lines marked 2A through 2D, write down 4 different things you did in this place. Okay, so like if for number 1, I said I went to Yosemite, right? Then number 2, I could put that I went fishing, I saw a bear, I ate lunch, I fed the crows. Okay, so then visualize. Now think about what the place looked like. What colors do you remember seeing? What objects were there? Were there other people? What did they look like? What were they wearing? Using the lines below, write down 4 details that describe how the place looked. And so I could say it was cloudy, it was full of big waterfalls, it had beautiful green meadows, it had giant sequoia trees. I could say that the bear I saw had dark brown hair. So there's lots of things that you could put. I was wearing a sweatshirt and jeans, or I was driving a black car through the park. Okay, so put down 4 different things that you saw. Describe them as well as you can. Now use your ears. Think about the sounds you heard in this place. Did anyone talk to you? What did they say? Was music playing? Were there other noises, or was it very quiet? Remember that even in quiet places, you can hear some noises. Perhaps you heard your own breathing, or the wind, or the air conditioner. So using the lines below, write down at least 4 sounds you heard in this place. So again, for mine in Yosemite, I would say I heard lots of people talking in different languages, lots of tourists. I heard my music in the car. I heard the water rushing down the waterfall. I heard my footsteps on the trail. I heard my heart beating in my chest when I was hiking on the trail. Okay. Maybe I heard the splash of the water when I was casting my line. or when I was pulling a fish out. So lots of different sounds. Then number 5, now write down any other details you can remember about this experience. These could include how the place feels, how the place smells, or any other special detail you remember and want to include. So I could say like, oh, the burger I ate for lunch was amazing, or the crows were really beautiful, stuff like that. Or maybe like, I just loved it there so much. The weather was awesome, or it was drizzling with a little bit of rain, or I loved the clouds. Okay. And then if you've answered all the questions, that's great. But if you haven't, remember that care matters more than speed. So I want you to take your time. You could take it home and finish it. But later in the poetry unit, you'll use this exercise as a starting point for a poem about your memory. So to write a strong poem, you'll need to have lots of information. So make sure this is as complete as possible. If you remember other details later, you should definitely come back and add them. So think of all the details Giovanni used to help her make her descriptions memorable, and try to do the same thing in your own work. Okay? If we have time, I'll have you share some of your descriptive details. You could turn to your partner if they finished also and share some of the details. And just tell them all the details you saw, and they could ask you some questions about it, and that might help you get some more ideas going. But then after we're all done, or if you're listening to this later because you were absent, we're going to do the lesson 3 poetry exit ticket. So make sure you do that if you were absent on Google Classroom. But if it is today that we're doing this lesson, then don't worry about it. We'll do it all as a class together. All right, thank you.